Welcome to your Global Vision Support Services training module, Overview of Common Disorders. Welcome. Today we are providing an overview of common mental disorders. To begin, it is important to define what constitutes a mental disorder. According to the DSM-5, a mental disorder is a syndrome characterized by a clinically significant disturbance in an individual's cognition, emotion regulation, or behavior. This reflects a dysfunction in the underlying psychological, biological, or developmental process. These disorders are typically associated with significant distress or disability in social or occupational activities. It is important to note what is not a mental disorder. An expectable response to a common stressor, such as the grief following the loss of a loved one, is not a disorder. Similarly, socially deviant behavior or conflicts between an individual and society are not classified as mental disorders unless they result from an internal dysfunction. Diagnostic categories and anxiety disorders. The DSM-5 organizes these into various categories ranging from neurodevelopmental and neurocognitive disorders to personality and substance-related disorders. We begin with anxiety disorders. OCD, obsessive-compulsive disorder, is characterized by obsessions that cause anxiety, like germs, and compulsions, like hand-washing, that relieve that anxiety. Social anxiety disorder involves a marked fear of social situations involving scrutiny. It lasts more than 6 months and significantly interferes with daily functioning. Panic disorder. This is defined by recurrent unexpected panic attacks and persistent worry about future attacks. A panic attack itself is a discrete period of intense fear that peaks within 10 minutes. It is vital to remember a panic attack is not the same as a panic disorder. Agoraphobia. A fear of situations where escape might be difficult, such as public transport, open or enclosed spaces, or being outside the home alone. Generalized anxiety disorder. Excessive, uncontrollable worrying occurring more days than not for at least 6 months, accompanied by symptoms like restlessness, fatigue, and muscle tension. Personality disorders. Next, we'll move on to personality disorders, such as obsessive-compulsive personality disorder, OCPD. Unlike OCD, this is a personality style, not an anxiety disorder. It involves intense perfectionism, rigidity, and a focus on lists and rules to point where the original task often remains incomplete. Cluster A, eccentric, includes paranoid personality disorder, where the individual is inherently suspicious and refuses to trust others. Cluster B, impulsive and dramatic. Antisocial personality disorder is characterized by a disregard for moral or legal standards. It is important to distinguish this from antisocial behavior or criminal behavior, which are behavioral or legal terms rather than psychological ones. Borderline personality disorder, BPD, defined by instability in mood, relationships, and self-image. A central concept here is splitting. Narcissistic personality disorder involves an inflated sense of self-importance and a lack of empathy for others. Attention and mood disorders. ADD or ADHD, these affect one's ability to focus or control impulses. Symptoms are categorized into inattention, distractibility, losing things, and hyperactivity or impulsivity, fidgeting, blurting out answers. Mood disorders, broadly covering depression and bipolar disorders, are major depression, indicated by a loss of interest in activities, fatigue, and feelings of hopelessness for at least 2 weeks. Bipolar disorder, also known as manic depressive illness. This involves mood swings between highs, the mania, and lows, the depression, characterized by extreme energy and racing thoughts during manic phases. Schizophrenia, conduct, and trauma. Finally, we address severe behavioral and psychotic conditions. Schizophrenia, a psychotic disorder involving a loss of contact with reality. Symptoms could include hallucinations, delusions, disorganized speech, and negative symptoms like emotional flatness or apathy. In children, warning signs may include extreme moodiness or confusing dreams with reality. Oppositional defiant disorder, a pattern of defiant, hostile behavior towards authority figures. Conduct disorder involves more serious aggressive behavior such as cruelty to animals or people, or property destruction, theft, or serious rule violations. PTSD, otherwise known as post-traumatic stress disorder. This occurs after exposure to a traumatic event involving threatened death or injury. It includes recurring recollections, avoiding stimuli associated with the trauma, and hyperarousal symptoms like difficulty sleeping or anger outbursts. It is critical to understand that while many individuals may work in support roles, only specifically trained and licensed professionals are legally authorized to provide a formal mental health diagnosis. In the United States, the authority to diagnose is governed by state-specific statutes, licensure requirements, and the clinician's scope of practice. Broadly speaking, the following professionals are typically trained and authorized to assess and diagnose mental health conditions using the DSM-5 criteria. Psychiatrists, MD or DO. Clinical psychologists, PhD or PSYD. Licensed clinical social workers, LCSW. Licensed professional counselors, LPC, LMHC, LPCC. Marriage and family therapist, LMFT. Important considerations. There's a scope of practice. Clinicians must only diagnose within the boundaries of their specific training and state licensure. The role of evaluation, diagnosis, is rarely a standalone act. It involves a comprehensive process, often including medical history reviews, physical examinations to rule out underlying physiological causes, and structured psychological evaluations. Pre-licensed clinicians. It is vital to note that interns, associates, and students are generally not qualified to diagnose independently. Their work is performed under the oversight of a licensed supervisor who holds the ultimate diagnostic responsibility. Finally, here's a recap on diagnostic categories. As a final reminder, Regarding the DSM-5 diagnostic categories, it is essential to remember that this framework, which includes the 20 distinct classifications from neurodevelopmental and schizophrenia spectrum disorders through to paraphilic and other mental disorders, serves as the primary clinical standard for assessment. Always refer back to these specific categories when reviewing diagnostic documentation to ensure that classifications remain consistent with current psychological standards. Also, at the end of the training, you will have access to the reading material through the PowerPoint presentations. This concludes our overview of common mental disorders. We have covered the foundational definitions, the importance of professional diagnostic boundaries, and a survey of key clinical conditions. By maintaining a clear understanding of these categories and the appropriate clinical standards, you are better equipped to support effective and accurate care. Thank you for your time and diligent attention today.